Oh, it is a beautiful Wednesday. So much going on. Breaking news in the NFL. NBA playoffs. I don't care what anybody says. That's the playoffs. Don't listen to anybody. That was the playoffs last night. They call it a play-in game. You watch those games. That intensity, that's the playoffs. It's the Herd wherever you may be and however you may be listening. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, FS1. Yeah, there's this, well, it's not the playoffs. You know what? You can tell when you're on vacation when you start having cocktails at noon. I don't care if it's part of the vacation, but if you pour a cocktail or a beer at noon, you're on vacation. That or you have a drinking problem. So that was a playoff atmosphere both games last night. The playoffs are officially here. Joy, how are you?
You're certainly not telling the Timberwolves that wasn't the playoffs.
Yeah, tell me that game last night in Minneapolis was not a playoff game. Of course it was. And by the way, we have some really interesting young teams in the NBA. Cleveland's a year away from being a handful. Memphis already is. Minnesota's probably a year away, but Ant delivered big time last night. It's good for them because it's been Kevin Garnett leaves. They never feel like the same. They've got a terrific young team.
And I love the young teams are in the playoffs.
Oh, this is a great time. So let's start with this. 2 playoff games. Let me talk about one to start. Brooklyn beat the Cavs. Very predictable. Brooklyn, this was the easiest game to figure out of the 2 last night. And it's also, Brooklyn's one of the easiest teams to figure out. So Kevin Durant's the best big finisher in the game, and Kyrie Irving's the best small finisher in the game. If you have the best closers, this was sort of a Shaq-Kobe thing. Shaq was the best big finisher. Kobe was arguably the best smaller finisher. You have a chance to win championships. So I don't know if this team does, because unlike those Laker teams, this Brooklyn team is bad defensively. The bench is suspect. Their chemistry, I'm not sure they have any. But what you saw last night is why I do think they're a dark horse and why everybody else is selling them. I'm buying them now because what you saw was essentially in the first half, Kyrie Irving said, fellas, give me the ball. Cleveland couldn't get their feet under them. They were nervous. They were anxious. They were out thinking the room. And Kyrie Irving was virtually perfect. Then Brooklyn with a huge lead, downshifts. It's hard to just keep that intensity up. Here comes young, pesky Cleveland for the next couple of quarters. And then at the end of the game, Kevin Durant says, all right, young fella, give me the ball and I'll close it. When you have the best big finisher and the best small finisher, it doesn't guarantee a title. And Brooklyn's got a lot of nonsense going on. Is Nash a great coach? Do they have a bench? I don't know if they have the size to beat in Milwaukee. They got holes everywhere. But this is a really predictable outcome. Kevin Durant is a spectacular talent. Offensively, I've said this before, he's one of the only players in league history would beat Michael Jordan in a game of one-on-one. Jordan could never stop him. And he's also wildly underappreciated defensively. Kevin's a great defensive player. He's got some injury stuff. Sometimes he's a bit emotionally a wanderer. I still think he should be in Golden State. He'd beat Jordan in one-on-one. Not saying he's a better player. I'm saying he'd beat him one-on-one. He could put it on the deck. He could beat him off the dribble. Michael can't get up that high, and he would block Michael's shot at times. He is a gifted once-in-a-lifetime player. Kyrie Irving's a smaller version. He's the best small closer in league history. He is in just filthy good. So, you know what they are? If they were an NFL team, Brooklyn is the NFL team with a great quarterback and superstar wide receiver. Little Cincinnati Bengals to them. Is that you're not sure if they can win a championship, and they got holes all over the place. But if you have a great quarterback and a great wide receiver, you can beat anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere. That's kind of what happened to the Bengals last year. There's a lot of holes, terrible O-line, bad linebackers, young coach, bad owner. But you're like, Burrow's great, Jamar Chase, you can't cover him. And end up beating teams that outgained him, beating teams that sacked them 9 times. Brooklyn's bench is going to get outscored by a Miami. They're going to get pushed around by a Milwaukee. But I get Kyrie and I get Kevin Durant. I can beat anybody. Here's Kyrie talking about his partner, KD.
I don't know a lot of 7-footers that are doing what he's doing with the ball in his hands as a playmaker as often as he is. And as when he sits up here and he's talking, you know, sometimes it's hard to really put yourself in his shoes and imagine what he sees out there, and he's seeing above the defense. He's able to make shots, but when he's passing the ball like that, it just brings our level up.
Yeah, he's pretty good. By the way, Kevin Love used to play with Kyrie Irving. And, Kyrie can drive me crazy. The idea of a quarterback or a basketball star not getting vaxxed and not being able to play home games, I can't wrap my brain around it. I just don't get it. And he gets hurt a lot, and he said the world is flat. But what he did in the first half, Kevin Love, a former teammate, faced him last night for Cleveland, a year away from being really good. Here's Kevin Love on his former teammate, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I always say about Kyrie in a March Madness one game type of situation, he's a tough guy to bet against. Again, seen this movie before, but still, I think that there's just times where he comes out and plays out of his mind, and that's why he's a future Hall of Famer. So you just kind of have to tip your hat to him. He's hit some really tough contested shots today.
Yeah. By the way, Cleveland is really young and is going to be spectacular. Cleveland feels like Milwaukee 2 years ago. They feel like, man, they need like one free agent piece maybe on the wing. Like if you're a star player and you're like, I want to like attach myself to a young team like Cleveland, to me, Mobley, Garland, that Cleveland's going to be really good. I think they're a championship team potentially in 2 years. They're a multiple series winning team. I mean, listen, if they had Jared Allen last night, do they win the game? Let's go to the second story. It's a breaking story. The Raiders, Ian Rappaport, the Raiders have signed Derek Carr to a 3-year contract extension. It's $120 million. It's going to be about $40 million per, which is probably more than I'd love to pay him. But this is the economy today of the NFL. We got wide receivers making $30 million. Okay, so a great wide receiver 3 years ago made 8. Here's my thing. I like Derek Carr more than everybody else because I'm a believer. Do you carry and are not carried? So to me, what Josh McDaniels is telling you, the first time I went to Denver as a head coach, I had to tear it down and tried to tear it down, and it was a disaster. I'm not tearing down anything. Derek Carr's a top quarterback. I'm keeping him. So that's what the Raiders and Josh McDaniel are telling you. Like, we don't need to tear anything down. I can win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr. And I believe that's true. I've had a theory for years in the NFL. You have to have a top 12 quarterback in the NFL to win a Super Bowl. Not just get there. Jared Goff got there. To win a Super Bowl. Because the two hardest games of the year are your conference championship and the Super Bowl. So don't tell me you get there. You'll win it. There are 12 guys in the NFL in no particular order. I think we know who's higher and lower. Here's my 12. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Brady, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson. Now, Carr may be closer to 12 than 2. And you're saying, where's Dak? Where's Kirk Cousins? Well, I've always said Dak and Kirk Cousins need really special players around them to elevate them. Derek Carr this year, in a tougher division than Dak, Derek Carr this year had an interim coach, had maybe the poorest owner in the league, lost his star receiver, had a bad O-line. Darren Waller was out, his best player. They had no up-the-field wide receiver. Hunter Renfro's a slot guy. He carried all of it in a pretty tough division to the playoffs. Well, Dak got to the playoffs. Dak, we have stats. He's one quarterback with Amari Cooper and another one without him. He's one quarterback with left tackle Tyron Smith. He's another without him. He's one quarterback when Zeke runs for over 100 yards. He's another when he doesn't. I like Dak. I like Kirk Cousins. Dak's a better athlete than Kirk. Kirk's a more accurate thrower than Dak. But we know what they are. Yeah, with Kirk Cousins. Yeah, when you give him Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, he gets 100 yards rushing and pass protection. Kirk Cousins can win a lot of games. Dak and Kirk Cousins, I know they're expensive, but they're good NFL quarterbacks. I like both. I like Derek Carr a lot more. Derek Carr's shown an ability to carry chaos to the playoffs. Go back and look at last year. It is unbelievable. In the better AFC, Derek Carr carried his franchise to a playoff. It was a circus. The head coaching mess, they bring in an interim, the Henry Ruggs story, the bad O-line. It was a circus. And he, often in big road games, made impeccable throws. Hunter Renfrow against the Colts, one of the best throws of the year. He carries. He elevates. I think Kirk and Dak tend to be elevated by other key players. There's your 12 again. If you got one of these 12, you're capable of winning a Super Bowl. Not saying you're a favorite. Not saying you wouldn't need a break or two. Mahomes, Rodgers, Russell, Brady, Josh, Lamar, Matt, Justin, Kyler, Joe, Derek, Deshaun. That's it to me. That's it. Congrats. You deserved it. A little more than I want to pay him. Rather pay him $30 a year, not $40. But we got gambling money flush in. We have a new economy in the NFL where literally wide receivers, Tyreek Hill got traded for 5 draft picks. What? Excuse me? That wasn't even on the menu a year ago. So the world's changing. It's all offense. Best quarterback wins. I can deal with it. A little more than I want to pay him. I can deal with it. No state tax. Going to have quite a life. It's going to have a nice house in Las Vegas for $40 million a year. Pretty good salary in Vegas.